Welcome and thanks for joining me. Let me take you back to one of the most terrifying nights of my life. One I never saw coming. One that started in the most innocent way possible. If you've ever had that feeling in your gut that something's not right, listen to it. I did, and I almost didn't make it home. I was in the thick of university life, drowning in assignments, midterms, caffeine and stress. I was doing a dual degree, which meant 6 classes every semester. 6. So most weeks, I was buried in textbooks and notes, barely coming up for air. That particular semester was especially brutal. Not only was I juggling coursework, but I was also interning. It felt like every hour of my day was scheduled and spoken for. Sleep was a luxury, peace and quiet, even more so. I lived in a campus suite with 3 other girls. Don't get me wrong, they were great, but not when I was trying to study. Our shared space was loud, full of giggles, music, and the usual chaos that comes with college life. When I needed to buckle down, there was only one real sanctuary, the campus library. Our university library was massive. 4 floors, endless rows of books and pockets of silence perfect for disappearing into your studies. It stayed open until midnight on weekdays, and that Wednesday night, I planned to be there until the very last minute. I had 3 classes that day, followed by a long shift at my internship. I was running on fumes, and with 2 exams the next day, I didn't have the luxury of skipping out on study time. So after finishing my internship at around 8:30 p.m., I made a beeline for the library. I arrived just before 9:00 p.m., laptop in hand, brain already buzzing with economic formulas and marketing theories. At that time, the library was still buzzing, students scattered at tables, some whispering over group projects, others plugged into their headphones. But by 10:00 p.m., it began to quiet down just like it always did. That sweet, late-night calm, where you could almost hear yourself think. I chose a quiet corner on the 3rd floor, tucked between 2 tall shelves. It was a private nook I'd used before, just 1 table, 4 chairs, and the muffled scent of old paper. I took my seat, opened my laptop, and dove into my notes. I was maybe an hour in when I first noticed him. It was around 11:00 p.m. I looked up briefly as a man entered my aisle. He looked to be in his late 20s, wearing a grey hoodie and jeans. I remember thinking it was odd. He passed multiple empty tables and came straight to mine. He sat diagonally across from me, setting his bag and books down casually. Our eyes met. He smiled. I gave a polite smile back and looked down, hoping to resume my focus, but I couldn't. Something felt off. At first, I tried to dismiss it. Maybe he just liked this spot. Maybe he didn't mean anything by it. But then he spoke. "Excuse me," he said softly. "Are you by any chance taking Econ 302? I shook my head. "No, sorry. I expected that to be the end of it. But it wasn't." He sighed dramatically. "Ooh, lucky. My professor is such a hard ass. Pop quizzes almost every day." I gave a half-hearted "wow, that sucks," and tried to turn back to my screen. But my mind was drifting now, no longer absorbed in charts or case studies. Why did he pick my table? Why was he still looking at me? I glanced up. He was smiling again, but not with his eyes, just with his mouth. Something cold twisted in my stomach. Then he asked my name. Without even thinking, I lied. "Chelsea. You have such blue eyes, Chelsea." That was it. That was the moment the red flags weren't just waving. They were screaming. I don't even have blue eyes. He was fishing for something, complimenting me, watching me, not studying. Definitely not. I needed to know more if he was even a student. So I played along. "What's your professor's name?" I asked. He paused for a beat. Professor Davis. "Do you know the first name?" He shook his head. I quietly opened a new tab and went straight to writemyprofessor.com. Searched our school. One Davis came up. A calculus professor. And the last review was from 3 years ago. That's when my alarm bells turned into sirens. I packed up my stuff slowly, trying not to draw too much attention, and made my way toward the front desk, where campus security sat. I could feel his eyes tracking my every step. The security guard was a middle-aged guy named Mike, who'd worked there for years. I quietly told him there was a man at my table who gave me a bad feeling, and I didn't think he was a student. Mike nodded and followed me back toward the aisle. The man saw us coming and straightened up in his chair. "Can I see your student ID?" Mike asked calmly. The man reached into his wallet, then his pockets, back to his wallet. He fumbled around, then said, "I must have left it at my dorm." "What dorm?" Mike asked. The man blinked. "I don't remember what it's called." Mike didn't even respond. He just gestured toward the exit. The man got up slowly, muttering under his breath, and followed Mike out of the building. When Mike returned, he looked at me and said, "Be careful walking home tonight, okay?" I thanked him and tried to refocus, but my head was spinning. Who was he? Why me? Why tonight? I tried to force my brain back into study mode, but the words on my screen blurred. I wasn't absorbing anything anymore. I kept glancing at the clock, counting down the minutes, until midnight. Eventually it was time to leave. I packed my things and made my way toward the exit. The same path that man had taken just an hour earlier. I scanned every corner, every shadow. He wasn't there, but the campus was eerily quiet. There's something unnatural about how silent a college campus is past midnight midweek. It should have been comforting, but instead it was isolating. The kind of silence that lets you hear your own heartbeat. I walked fast, every step echoing louder than the last. I was halfway to my dorm when I heard it. Clack. A footstep. I froze, whipped around. No one. I knew I heard it. That solid slap of a shoe against pavement. I quickened my pace. Then my backpack bounced against my spine as I sprinted. But the sound that followed made my blood run cold. Footsteps. Not mine. His. I turned again, and there he was, the man from the library barreling toward me. I screamed. It was sharp, raw, instinctual, but it only lasted a second before he tackled me, slamming me to the pavement. His hand clamped over my mouth. "Shut up or I'll kill you," he hissed into my ear. I couldn't breathe. My lungs burned with panic. I tried to cry out again, but his grip tightened. He yanked me up by the throat and started dragging me across the pavement, toward the edge of the woods by the dorms. I knew if he got me in there, I was gone. I twisted, kicked, clawed at his arm. I managed to jerk my head back just enough to break his hold on my mouth, and I screamed again. This time someone heard. "Hey, stop!" Two guys came sprinting across the quad, their voices like a floodlight in the dark. The man dropped me like a sack of bricks and bolted for the tree. I collapsed to the ground, shaking, unable to process what had just happened. The two guys hovered over me. They were talking, but I couldn't understand the words. Everything sounded like static. I was in complete shock. I broke down sobbing, not silent tears, full body, heaving sobs. Eventually I was able to tell them what happened. They called campus police. I gave them everything I could. Description, time, what he said. We went back to the library. Mike, the security guard, confirmed the man's description. The campus police reviewed surveillance footage and got a crystal clear image of his face. The university issued a mass alert. His face was sent to every student's phone, email, and posted on the school's website. A few hours later, they got he was at a dive bar down the road, drinking alone. The police showed up and arrested him on the spot. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but it wasn't. The nightmares didn't stop. I started walking with pepper spray. I couldn't focus in the library anymore. I moved out of the dorms the next semester. I went to therapy. I healed slowly, but some part of me changed that night, because I know how close I came to disappearing, and I know how many others weren't as lucky. Please, if you take anything from my story, let it be this. Trust your gut. Sit up. Move seats. Ask for help. Don't worry about seeming rude. Your safety is more important than someone else's feelings. Stay alert, stay safe, and never, ever ignore the feeling that something's not right. If this story gave you chills or made you think twice about your own late-night routines, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps more than you know, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there. Thanks for joining me. Have you ever had a memory from your early childhood that clings to the back of your mind like a shadow? Something half-faded, like a dream you're not sure you actually had, until one day it comes rushing back with terrifying clarity. This is one of those memories, a story from a time when I was far too young to understand how close I came to something sinister. Let me take you back to the day I met a stranger in the children's section of a quiet town library. We moved to a new town when I was 7 years old. To this day, I mark that moment as the beginning of everything I remember clearly. Before the move, my memories feel like photographs left out in the sun, washed out, warped, disconnected fragments of a different lifetime. But there's one memory from before that move that stands out, haunting, vivid, and deeply unsettling. It bubbles up every now and then, completely uninvited. And though part of me wants to forget it, some other part of me knows I never will. I was maybe 5 or 6, skinny, quiet kid, with a loud imagination and a fierce loyalty to my mum. She used to take me and my little brother, just a toddler at the time, to this small town library a few blocks from our house. We didn't have much money, but that library was like a castle to me. Books, computer games, colorful rugs in the kids section. It felt safe, cozy, familiar. I remember the day in sharp detail. The beginning was normal, even happy. We started the day at the mall, tagging along as Mum shopped. My little brother was strapped into his stroller, babbling away while I wandered alongside, bored out of my mind. The one bright spot of these shopping trips was always the McDonald's inside the mall. Without fail, Mum would get us ice cream cones on the way out. This day was no exception. I still had mine in hand when we left the mall and headed to the library. It was late afternoon, maybe edging toward evening. The sunlight was thick and golden, filtering through the windows of the library as we entered. I remember the scent of old pages and air conditioning. That specific hush libraries have, where even whispers seem too loud. Mum brought us to the kids section, tucked into a far corner of the library, where computer games were set up near shelves of colorful books, and let me settle in while she took my brother off to find something. The moment her footsteps faded, I dove into one of the computers. I don't even remember what game I played. Something clunky and outdated by today's standards, but it was magic to me back then. Eventually I got bored. I stood up, still licking the last sticky bit of my ice cream cone, and started wandering the aisles of children's books. I was on a mission to find the I Spy books. I had a favorite, the treasure hunt one. I always looked for that one first. That's when I heard it. A soft sound, almost like a whisper. Just a single letter, P. I turned around, puzzled. No one was there, just the back wall of the kids section, lined with shelves. But then slowly, someone peeked around the corner of a shelf. Only half his face was visible. A grown man. He smiled and said, in a cheerful voice, "Peekaboo." I laughed. I didn't feel scared at all. At that age, my world was small, and danger didn't exist. Stranger danger was just a phrase in a cartoon. This was just a funny man playing a game. He ducked back behind the shelf, then popped his head out again. "Peekaboo." I laughed harder this time. He asked what I was looking for, and I told him, "I Spy books." "Oh," he said, "I can help you find those." And just like that, he took my hand. I didn't think twice. We walked together through the aisles to the I section, and there they were, at least 5 I Spy books, lined up in a neat row. I grabbed my favorite, the treasure hunt one, and he smiled. "Let's go sit down and play," he said. He led me to a little table near the children's computers, and we opened the book together, page after page. He asked me questions. "What's that thing in the corner? Can you find the red feather? What's your favorite thing to look for?" It all seemed innocent. I remember laughing and pointing things out, completely unaware of the undercurrent slowly shifting around me, until one question changed everything. "Who are you here with?" I looked up and said, my mom and my baby brother. Something about his smile tightened then. He paused, then said something that still makes my skin crawl. "You know," he said, "there's a playroom downstairs. Most kids don't even know it's there. We can take the book down and play there. It's much more fun." At that age, I didn't know the library had a basement, but I nodded. He led me to a door at the back of the children's section. It looked normal, just a heavy wooden door with a push bar. When he opened it, a dim, narrow stairwell revealed itself, lit by humming yellow bulbs overhead. We descended. The basement smelled different, damp and dusty, not like the main floor at all. At the bottom of the stairs, a hallway branched in two directions. He led me down the left side to a small room, a playroom, just like he said. It was filled with toys, mostly Legos, a few scattered books, and small plastic chairs stacked against the walls. The I Spy book was placed on the Lego table, but the moment I stepped inside, something felt wrong. He was no longer laughing or cheerful. He was quiet, focused. He knelt beside the Lego table and urged me to play. "Come on," he said. "Let's build something." I hesitated. My legs suddenly felt heavy. I didn't want to sit down. Then the intercom crackled overhead. A woman's voice said loud and clear, "Will Liam please come to the front desk? Your mother is looking for you." My heart dropped. The man stood up fast, too fast, and walked over to the wall. He flipped a switch. The lights went out. Pitch black. "We're going to play hide and seek," he whispered from the darkness. That was the moment something inside me snapped wide awake. I was terrified, real, skin crawling, gut clenching fear. I couldn't see anything. I yelled for my mom, loud, over and over. "Mom, Mom." His voice came back sharper now. "Be quiet." Footsteps, getting closer. "Shut up." Then his hands, I felt them grab at my arms. I screamed, twisting, kicking, squirming. I don't even know how I slipped away, but I did. I tore through the dark, pushing the door open and running blindly down the hallway. My shoes thudded against the concrete. I could hear his footsteps behind me, too close. I reached the stairs and ran. I ran like I'd never run before, like those nightmares where something is chasing you and you can't move fast enough. But this was real. The light at the top of the stairs was like heaven opening up. I exploded through the door and ran straight for the front desk, yelling for my mum. She was talking to a group of librarians. The moment she saw me, her whole face changed. Relief, panic, confusion all at once. I ran into her arms, sobbing. I remember blurting out something like, "A man took me downstairs," and before I could finish, she was already yelling. I'd never seen her like that. Fierce, protective, terrified. The next thing I knew, police officers were in the building, searching, asking questions. I never saw the man again. He must have slipped out one of the side exits, while everyone was focused on the front. Later, a woman, I think she was a police officer, sat with me in a quiet room, asking gentle questions. Her tone was calm, but I could feel something heavy behind her words. I didn't really understand what almost happened. Not fully, not until I was older. Even now, all these years later, I rarely talk about it. I've never asked my mum for details. Some part of me just doesn't want to know what might have happened if the intercom hadn't called my name when it did, if the lights hadn't stayed off just a few seconds longer. But that day taught me something very real. Monsters don't always wear fangs or claws. Sometimes they smile, sometimes they say peekaboo, and sometimes they're standing right behind you. Thanks for listening. If this story gave you chills or reminded you of a moment from your own past, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this one. Stay safe and trust your instincts. They might save your life. Thanks for joining me. Let me take you back to a night I'll never forget. A night that forever changed the way I feel about quiet places, locked doors, and the dark. You know how libraries are supposed to feel safe, peaceful? That illusion shattered for me on a rainy Friday night when something or someone slipped through the cracks of routine and security and turned an ordinary shift into a waking nightmare. I was in my early 20s, juggling 2 jobs and doing what I could to stay afloat. My second job was at the local public library, working the night shift 3 times a week. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet, and after a day of noise and customers at my first job, the stillness of the library felt like a blessing. The shift started at 6 and ended at 9. But my night didn't stop when the doors closed. Locking up was just the beginning of the real work. Shutting down computers, cleaning up, organizing tables and chairs, restocking books and DVDs, and taking out the garbage. I was always the last one out, always. This particular Friday evening felt like any other. Quiet, still, routine. By 8:45 the library was nearly empty. Just me and one of the female librarians who was finishing up some paperwork. I made a final announcement over the intercom, asking any remaining patrons to wrap up their work. 2 people still lingered at separate tables, college students by the looks of it. I started stacking the returned DVDs in one box and books in another, keeping an eye on the clock. At 9:00 sharp I gave the final call and walked to the front desk to make the closing announcement. The students got up, nodding politely, and made their way out the front door. The last librarian waved goodbye and left behind them, leaving me alone. I locked the front door with a solid click, the kind that echoes just a little too loudly in a now empty building. The silence that followed always felt heavier after that sound, like the library knew it was sealed up for the night and was holding its breath. I started cleaning up quickly, eager to finish up and start my weekend. First came the chairs, tucking them neatly under the tables in the reading area, one by one. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead, and the occasional creak of the building settling was all I could hear. Next was the trash. I made my rounds, collecting wastebaskets and tossing their contents into a large bag. Once I had everything, I unlocked the front door again to take it all out to the dumpster tucked along the side of the building. The air was chilly and damp. Fog hovered low over the pavement, and the streetlights barely touched the edges of the property. I dumped the trash, glanced around and didn't see a soul, just the usual silence that hugged the library grounds like a fog of its own. I went back inside, locked the door again and one last thing, restocking. The DVD section came first. It was smaller, and the cases were easier to shelve. I started there, humming a little to keep my nerves calm. About 5 minutes into the task, I heard a soft thud, like a book falling. I froze. It came from one of the nearby aisles. Now books fall all the time. Maybe they were improperly shelved. Maybe someone had left one on the edge earlier. But this one felt recent. I walked toward the sound, weaving through the aisles of fiction, until I saw an open book lying face down in the middle of the aisle. I bent down, picked it up, and stared at the shelf. It wasn't just off balance. It looked like it had flown off. I shook the thought out of my head. "Don't be weird," I whispered. "Just the building settling, or static, or something." I put the book back, turned around and headed back to the front with the other box, the one filled with books. This part took longer. The books were organized alphabetically, and I followed the system like a machine. A, B, C. A low thump followed by a soft scrape. My skin prickled. I set the box down slowly and tiptoed toward the shelves. There, in a different aisle, lay 2 more books, this time stacked on top of one another, clearly pulled from the shelf. Someone had to be in here. "Excuse me," I called out, my voice a little shakier than I liked. "The library's closed." "Hello?" Silence, but only for a few seconds. Then from the far end of the library, the children's section, I heard it. Growling. Not the kind of sound a person makes in frustration or pain. No, this was guttural, unhinged. animalistic, and then came the sound of books hitting the floor. Thwop, thwop, thwop. Like someone was flinging them off the shelves in a rage. I hesitated at the corner of the aisle, my breath caught in my throat. Slowly, I peeked around it. There, under the dim yellow lights of the children's section, was a woman. She looked sick, her skin pale and almost bluish in places. She was barefoot, wearing a long, stained nightgown, and her hair was tangled like seaweed. She screeched suddenly and threw a book so hard it hit the wall. I didn't say a word. I ran. I sprinted straight to the office and slammed the door shut, locking it and drawing the blinds over the small window. My hands trembled as I picked up the phone. No cell phone, just the landline. I dialed 911 and whispered as loud as I could, "There's someone in the library. She's not right. She's not well. I think she needs help." The operator asked if I had confronted her. I told them no, I didn't even get close. Something was off, really off. Then she asked me if the woman was still in the same spot. I hesitated, then opened the blinds a tiny crack and screamed. The woman was right there, her face pressed against the glass, pupils blown wide and dark like black holes. Her face twitched with wild expressions as she stared at me. "She's here," I shouted into the phone. "She's outside the office." She started pounding on the glass with her fists, her mouth moving rapidly but making no coherent sound. Then she tried the door handle, jiggling it violently before letting out a high-pitched shriek. When it didn't open, she slowly turned around and just like that, sat down on a chair, directly facing me, rocking, grinning, watching. I stayed on the line, eyes locked on her, describing every move she made. The operator kept me talking until I heard sirens in the distance. 2 police cruisers and an ambulance pulled up, lights flashing across the library wall. Officers came in through the side door. After I directed them over the phone, the woman didn't run. She didn't scream, but the moment they tried to grab her, she exploded, swinging, biting, snarling. She had no words, just rage. They got her in cuffs eventually and dragged her out. She was strapped down in the ambulance, still writhing, still hissing. I never got answers. Not about what she was on, not about how she got in. Maybe it was when I took the trash out, or maybe she'd been inside the whole time, lurking behind shelves, watching. All I know is, after that night, closing shifts were never the same. Every sound, every shadow, I questioned it all. Because now I knew, not everything that walks into a library walks in to read. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, comment and subscribe for more chilling tales just like this. Stay safe, stay aware, and never assume you're truly alone, even in the quietest places.